Welcome to NUIC Football, joined by Logan Swan. I'm your host, Kyle Kampmier. Joe Murdian will join us later to take a look at IFA. Right now, we're going to take a quick recap of what happened in Week 9. We're going to take a look ahead to the playoffs, Class 1A to 3A. We're going to give you thoughts, analysis, projections, and of course, cover our local teams in the NUIC in their matchups for these first round playoffs. Logan, great to have you back on the show once again, as always. What games really solidified what you thought would happen last week in Week 9?
Obviously, our game with Brown County took place, and I remember texting you Monday, and I was a nervous wreck all week. I was. I'm glad it went the way of us. It was a back and forth game for really the entire time. I'm glad it worked out for us. Obviously, Brown County is a terrific team, still at 7-2. That's a tough 7-2, no matter who you are. So, hats off to them in a great game. Other than that, nothing really stood out to me. It seemed to kind of be the status quo compared to normal, other than there was one game that caught me off guard, and that was, I did not think Casey would lose. I had them winning.
Yeah, that was one game there. A game that stood out to me was Knoxville's win over Stark County. I've brought it up a couple different times. Stark County was a team that started off 5-0, and going into Week 6 ahead of that, I put out our first playoff projections of the year, and I had Stark County projected at 5-4. And, some people had kind of laughed at that, and it's like, well, it's kind of where I see them at. And, Knoxville got in with that win over Stark County, putting both teams at 5-4 and into the playoffs. So, that was one game there. And then, another thing that happened was obviously Benton coming into the Class 3A field. So we saw the 1A cutoff line come down to 291. We watched 2A stay consistent at 400, but then we saw 3A go up to 594. So obviously there was some things and events there that took place that created that to happen. But overall, I think a lot of it went to how most of it we had projected out already, and obviously I had people questioning me on, where the projections were going to be, things like that. People were saying there's no way Wilmington's going to be in 2A. They're going to be 3A. I even had one guy say, I coach in the same conference as Wilmington. There's no way that they're going to be in 2A. It's, joke's on you, bud. Joke's on you.
Oh, man.
But regardless, it's one of those things where these are going to be some fun playoffs. I think 3A is definitely the juggernaut of a bracket that we thought it would be. Realistically, there's like 4 or 5 teams that we can see really giving it a run. And of those 4 or 5 teams, 4 of them are in that north bracket.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a bummer there.
On the bright side, the quarterfinals and semifinals will be great.
They will be. They're going to be a ton of fun. And I'm still very excited about the 3A bracket regardless. I just have a high feeling that unless one of the teams in the South bracket make it to that state championship game, it's going to be a runaway game in the 3A state championship. With that said, even if that one team does make it, there is a high possibility that it could still be a potential runaway game. It's going to be interesting. I'm excited for it. We've seen this play out before. go back to 2018, 2019. Byron was the heavy favorite to win state both those years. And Williamsville and Monticello came up with state championships in those 2 years in great games, albeit. But I don't know. It's going to be fun. Obviously, the 2A bracket has turned out the
2A
way
South
we
is
thought it would be. 2A South is going to be
kind of wide open.
It is wide open. We've seen Moreau Forsyth kind of have a couple hiccups here the past couple of weeks, so I don't know if they're battling injuries that have kind of defaulted that, or I've heard some critics already state that Moreau Forsyth has trouble stopping a power run team. Well, they're going to see a couple of those coming right down the pathway here as they get moving into the playoffs. Westville obviously went into that 2A South bracket. They immediately become one of the top favorites to reach the state championship game coming out of that South bracket, which is very interesting. And then, 2A North, obviously Wilmington is everybody's favorite, but Rock Ridge is nip and tuck right there. A lot of talk about Farmington being in that mix, Seneca being in that mix. So there's obviously a lot of conversation to be had. And I think that 2A bracket, we'll touch base on it later, has one of the most interesting first round games with one of the potential favorites in that field as well. When we break that down, and then the 1A bracket, we see a lot of people are complaining because we have conference rematch games taking place both in the North and in the South brackets. And it's one of those things where we've already seen what it would look like if it were projected out 1 through 32. And if that were the case, the top 3 teams in Class 1A would all be put in the same bracket. So the whole idea of going 1 through 32, don't get me wrong, I'm a huge advocate for it. But in this instance, with this bracket, we probably wouldn't see the 2 best teams reach state if it were 1 through 32. They'd be playing each other before the state championship game.
Yeah.
Now, granted, the 4 seat, the 4 team in that mix would be your Calhoun Warriors, who would be the odds-on favorite on the other side of the bracket. So that could still lead, if that were hypothetically speaking, that could lead to still a very good championship style game. There are other teams in there too that we definitely feel can be players. I mean, we've talked about KZ, Westfield, and Tuscola. Anawan, Wethersfield, while they haven't had quite the schedule strength that you'd like to see, they've done nothing but win their games relatively by the scores that you would expect them to win by. I don't know. I think overall, each of these brackets, 1A through 3A, look really good. Obviously, there's clear favorites. Probably the biggest aspect, especially in 1A, is you have the 2 favorites in the North and the 2 favorites in the South on opposite sides of the bracket. So there is the potential opportunity that if they play up to their capabilities, that they could meet up in the semifinals. It's been a few years since we've seen that happen, but that'll be interesting if that plays out as well. And then there's a few games in there that can definitely give you a little bit of a headache too. So definitely very interesting to see what transpires here.
Yeah,
Your
it's gonna
thoughts?
be it's fun. I'm looking forward to it. Obviously, I watched your playoff show Saturday night after the 1A kind of unveiling was done. For 1A, I like what you said. I feel like it kind of shaped out nicely for how the people who view the favorites, and there are still other teams that can win there. There's the teams that view the two teams in the North and the South and one at least for how you view it, like the top 2 teams in the North, top 2 teams in the South. It did work out to where the potential for the semifinal is there. That said, if you look at the second round game for Camp Point, it's probably Brown County, and then the second round game for Calhoun to us, it's probably Greenfield. I say probably because I know Cesar's only a touchdown underdog, and they got a bunch of kids back from last year's team, so I don't know. Those kids are all seniors now. I don't know, and then obviously you have Casey and Tuscola waiting in the quarters, and to be completely honest, I kind of looked at Camp Point's draw if they were to beat Brown County in the second round, kind of previewing ahead. I think there's a chance you could get Carrollton there.
Yeah, I actually was taking a look at that as well because I'll be honest, earlier today I was trying to go through and figure out what my first round projections would be. And we'll talk about some of those projections here coming up down the show as well. But then I looked at their path specifically, and yeah, I could see them making a potential quarterfinal run where they would meet up with the high likelihood of Camp Point Central. And if you're a Carrollton fan, you got to be excited about that. And
I know personally that was their goal because I read every article I can on every single team, and I can't remember if it was one of the players or if it was Coach Flowers. It might have been Coach Flowers, but they said their goal every year is to get to the quarterfinals, and then from there on, you're playing with house money at that point.
Yeah, I mean, and don't get me wrong, that's a great goal to have. I mean, you hear many coaches around the state attest to that. If you can make it to weeks 11 and 12, you're getting that much more valuable experience for your kids, especially those that are coming back to the program, are gaining that many more additional weeks of practicing, preparing over other teams that are either already out of the playoffs or never made the playoffs. So, and that's realistically, that's where you build your programs. That is right there alone. So, yeah, it's very cool taking a look at some of this. There is one matchup too. I know Greg and Mitch had touched base on it on their show already on View from the West, but the potential opportunity of Lena-Winslow and Marquette Academy taking place in Ottawa at Gold Stadium. It's been quite a few years since I've been down to Ottawa Marquette. Probably, I know I was there. I think it was the 2016 season was the last time I was there. I went twice. So it, like I've said before, I've had some great experiences with the Marquette Crusaders and their fan base. And, that would be a game I would definitely take interest in. Not saying that it's going to happen that way. Projection wise, it could happen that way. But, yeah, there's a lot of games here. I can see some upsets too. I mean, some of them are going to be upsets by seed, but not really upsets. And some of them are going to be potential upsets. But we'll talk about that as we get down the road here. Let's take a look at our Byron Wealth Management final scores from last week. And right there, you have it. Galena beat Fulton 26-7. Stockton beat Forreston 44-6. Lena-Winslow beat Dupac 40-20. Marquette beat Morrison 66-23. And EPC beat Dakota 59-22. And Logan, what that did for us was what we had talked about the entire time about the potential opportunity of having 6 teams from the NUIC in these playoffs. And we have 6 teams in these playoffs. The unfortunate part is that 4 of them are going to play against each other in week 1 or round 1.
Brutal.
But it is what it is. I can't really argue it so much. If other games had gone the way that could have gone, it would have kept this from happening. Unfortunately, this is just the luck of the draw. And to be quite honest, the Stockton Galena game, I think, would have happened either way had it been 1 through 16 or 1 through 32. So there was really a hard opportunity to not have that happen, or it would have been Stockton and Forreston. Either way, one of those two teams were going to be playing Stockton, regardless of how it played out. So you got to take it for what it is, too. While 1 through 32 is awesome, and like I said, I'm an advocate for it, it does not guarantee you're going to get at the best teams to the state championship. It just doesn't. But, I do like the way IHSA does it. I think that there is some interest out there to seeding the playoffs instead of based off of wins and losses and playoff points, coming up with an idea of doing it through some sort of generated rating system where you can create like a strength of record where you're not getting jeopardized for playing a tougher schedule. It would eventually show out through the strength of record. And one of those systems was being performed by a guy on Twitter at IVHSS, Eric Kiefer, and he is from Ohio originally. That's where he got the idea from. And with that would have put Leroy at 4-5 into the playoffs over a 5-4 Villa Grove team. So it goes back to all these people talking about, the current proposals that are taking place and the expansion of playoffs. This isn't necessarily talking about expansion of playoffs, but it's proof in the pudding that there are teams with losing records that are better than some of these teams with winning records based off of the schedules that they play. And in my opinion, I think that would be a better way to go. Do I agree with that specific rating system 100%? No. I think you could put something together, though, that could combine something to that level with some other algorithm-based technology that can help drive it and be more consistent. So you're getting the best 32 teams in the actual playoffs. I think that would be a lot of fun. That's just my take.
There's no perfect system. There's ways to improve it. That's clear. There's ways to improve it. There's no perfect system. As great as 1 through 32 is, and I want 1 through 32, it does lead to situations like I'll use 8A for example. Lincoln Way East obviously lost 2 games, and they're right now on HS ratings the second best team in the state, only behind Chicago Mount Carmel. That matchup is going to take place more than likely if Jonas Williams, their 5-star, whatever he is, quarterback committed to USC, it comes back and play, would take place in the quarterfinals. Now, obviously, they lost some games they weren't expected to, but there's no perfect way to do it. There's just better ways.
Yeah, I agree. Anyway, let's take a look at the NUIC final standing. So, obviously, Stockton is your outright conference champion for 2025. Perfect record, 9-0, 8-0. Their first undefeated regular season since the 2016 season. Their first conference title since the 2017 season. Obviously, Lena-Winslow finishes second, Dupac third. Forreston, Galena, and EPC all finish in a tie for fourth as they all played merry-go-round, beating each other up, which, at the same token, helped lead to us getting 6 teams into the playoffs. Morrison finishing in 7th, Fulton 8th, and Dakota in 9th spot. So, and that's one of the things for the teams not making the playoffs. We talked about it a little bit last week. Dakota, obviously, they did some good things throughout the course of the season. They had very very low numbers, tragically low numbers, but they continued to fight every week. And, there's a lot of people out there saying that they should do this, they should do that. There's talks about the potential of, forfeiting a season, or just going to JV, or going into a co-op, or going into 8-man, regardless of all of that. And granted, everybody has an opinion on what they could or should do to help their program out. Besides that, though, these kids showed up every week and they fought every single week. They didn't duck anybody. They didn't forfeit to anybody because of who they were going up against. That, to me, speaks more than what their record does. And, you got to give a round of applause to their coaches for continuing to drive and be there every single week. Likewise, Fulton and Morrison, we saw them battle through different types of injuries, illness. And despite their outcomes, they gave some very tough challenges to some of these teams that are making the playoffs, which just goes to speak to the volume and the strength of the NUIC, which a lot of people talk about. I mean, we talked about it on our playoff show this past week, but we've also heard that sentiment from some of the coaches that we had on as well, that, you don't always want to see a 5-4 NUIC team first round. It's especially if you're not from that conference to where you go up against it. You want to welcome that challenge. Absolutely. Who doesn't? And there's teams in the WIVC in your area that we say the same things. We've seen the same things out of the Heart of Central Illinois Conference, the Sangamo Conference. Like, we talk about it all the time. And yes, I love the NUIC. It's where I'm from. And our record goes to prove that. But there are good football teams in other conferences, and other conferences are very tough conferences as well. Do I think that football overall is kind of on a downward trend? I do, at least in the lower classes. It's an unfortunate reality to what it is. Does that mean that teams should quit playing? Absolutely not. I think that we need more teams playing football. I think we need more kids going out for football. I think football is a vehicle that can help lead to a better life, so to speak. There's a lot of things that you're going to learn in the game of football, just like in the game of wrestling, or the sport of wrestling, I should say, that you're going to learn in track and field, basketball, baseball. But some of those sports aren't as physical as the others. So they all teach you something different about teamwork, camaraderie, mental toughness, strength, persistence, perseverance, all life lessons that you can take with you. And I think it's an unfortunate thing when, it's one thing if you have a kid that just cannot play the game of football. Skill level's not there, size isn't there, the physical maturity is not there. That is understandable, right? But if you're a physically capable and able-bodied person, get out on the football field, show a little aggression. That's the beauty of the sport, right? You get to go out and hit somebody, and it's legal. And it's fun to be able to get that aggression out there and just go attack something, and do it with a bunch of friends that you're in school with every day. And some of these schools and programs, that's exactly what they need to do. They need to get their best athletes from other sports out for the programs. It's not always about being the best player. It's about being a player to help your teammates out. But anyway, just wanted to throw that out there real quick, because despite the records of those bottom three teams, they still went out. They fought every week, and it was still fun to watch them do what they do. All right, Logan, let's take a look at the playoff picture when we return right after this.
Hey there, local high school football fans. This is Sean Considine, a Byron Tiger and Iowa Hawkeye alumni, and now an LPL financial advisor. I'm passionate about high school football because it's the purest form of the game where communities come together, lifelong character is built, and the love for football runs deeper than the scoreboard. You can find me in my Byron office most days until I run off to football practice. I'm happy to talk about football or the markets. I'll leave that up to you. I want to wish everyone across Illinois a safe, successful, and memorable high school football season. Securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor, member FINRA SIPC.
Are you looking to raise funds for your program? Look no further than Leading Edge Fundraising, helping teams and programs raise more with less hassle. Whether you're gearing up for a new season or trying to hit a financial goal, Leading Edge has the tools, products, and experience to get you there. From youth clubs to varsity programs, they've helped teams across Illinois maximize profits and minimize stress. Want fundraising that actually works? Go with the local experts who know how to win off the field too. Contact Brandon at 563-514-1647. Leading Edge Fundraising, raising the standard. Reach out today and take your program to the next level.
All right, look at that first game we're going to take a look at is Lena-Winslow. They have the number 3 seed with an 8-1 record. They are going to play host to their rival, the Forreston Cardinals, who are the 14th seed, entering with a 5-4 record. Forreston lost last week to Stockton, 44-6. Lena-Winslow beat Dupec, 40-20. These two teams met back up in week 1, where Lena-Winslow won 50-12. Forreston is back in the playoffs after missing the playoffs last season. That's exciting. The Cards also have a 38-25 record all-time in the playoffs. They are making their 29th appearance. They've won state titles in 2014, 2016, and 2018. But here's the bad part, Logan. Their last 3 playoff appearances have ended at the hands of the Panthers. Give me your thoughts on this game real quick.
Man, I wish this isn't me picking on Forreston. I wish this was taking like we had that 4-team NUIC quarterfinal that I brought up so long ago, because this is just like it's the game in the NUIC. That's what it has like. That's what it is. Even when Forreston they made the quarterfinals or semifinals, when they beat Hope as a 15 seed, I can't remember how far they went, but obviously their record wasn't great. They were 5-4 NUIC team, shocker.
They went to the semis that year.
Semis, yep, that's what it was. And it's just like this game has a different feel to it every single time it's played, and then you amplify it by playing it in the playoffs. It just gets even better.
Yeah, I agree. It is a bummer that this game has to happen here, because I think Forreston is stronger than a lot of teams in the playoff field. I mean, let's be honest. They're despite their record, they're probably one of the top 10 teams in the state of Illinois. And the fact that they have to go up against one of the top 3 teams in the state of Illinois right off the bat kind of does disservice to what Forreston is. Now, that's not saying that they can't battle in this game. I expect them to battle. Back when they met up in week 1, Coach Aaron said after the game in his post game was that this Forreston team was going to be a team that you might not want to see come November. And we've kind of been speaking that tune for the last 5 weeks. And, it's going to be what it is. Obviously, they met up in 2021 in the second round. That was a year that Lena-Winslow won state, but Forreston had beat Lena-Winslow in week 9, and then 2 weeks later, they lost 38-8. 2022 was at semifinals, where they made it at 5-4, reached the semifinals, lost to Lena-Winslow 38-16. 2023, they met up in the second round, where Lena-Winslow won 46-14. So you kind of see a trend in those playoff scores the last 3 times they've met up. But it's going to be a battle, uphill battle. Obviously, they met earlier this year where Lena-Winslow won 50-12. So and that kind of fits into those playoff score projection or results that we've seen in their prior matchups. Lena-Winslow, on the other hand, has made 5 consecutive trips to the state championship game and 6 in the last 7 years. That one time that they didn't make it, it was these Forreston Cardinals who knocked them out in the semifinals. And obviously that Forreston team went on to play Camp Point Central in their first appearance at the state championship game. And, it's kind of funny that you fast forward, a few years later, and Camp Point Central is a team that we're looking at potentially getting to their 4th state championship game. So, regardless, it's going to be a fun matchup. Lena-Winslow obviously lost at state last year to Althoff Catholic, 57-14. Forreston has those 3 state titles we talked about. Lena-Winslow has 6 state titles, plus the 2 runner-ups from the last 2 seasons. The Panthers are 61-24 in playoff history. They are making their 31st appearance, also making their 26th consecutive playoff appearance. Since 2009, Lena-Winslow has only missed the quarterfinal round twice, 2011 and 2015. So that just tells you how strong Lena-Winslow has been for the past 16 years. So a lot there. Now, one of the things that we do have in this game is our Reese and Reese Player of the Week. And that's going to go to this guy right here, Alex Schlichting, who had 13 attempts for 124 yards and 3 touchdowns in that win over Dupac. In that game, surpassed 3,000 rushing yards, also reached 40 career rushing touchdowns as well. So congratulations to Alex Schlichting as our Reese and Reese NUIC Player of the Week. So, and that's one of the things that we've talked about here recently. Lena-Winslow starting to get healthy. Forreston looks to be relatively healthy as well, especially being that we're going into week 10. Give us our projections here, Logan.
The projection for this game is the 14 seed Forreston 14 and the 3 seed Lena-Winslow 48. Lena-Winslow's favored by 27 points.
So, it's going to be an uphill battle for the Cardinals. I think that, obviously they know what they're up against. It's something that you just can't miss. But at the same time, it's one of those things where I think Coach Janicki will get his kids prepared for this game. I think we're going to see a different game than what we saw in week 1. But at the same time, I don't think we saw everything that we were expecting to see out of Lena-Winslow, as they have a history of keeping things back on what they can do, trying to keep things off of game film so people can't study up on them as they usually prepare for a deeper postseason run. And Forreston being a team that they're usually looking at being a team that they could meet back up with again come playoff time. So, my pick to win is going to be Lena-Winslow, obviously. This is just one of those games where it's a little bit unfortunate that you got to see it in the first round.
I got Lena-Winslow too. I think the score will be much more indicative of the other times they've met in the playoffs where Lena-Winslow wins, but I think it'll be a hard-earned win despite what the score says.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think Forreston's going to come out punching, that's for sure. Our next game takes us to John O'Boyle Field, where the number 1 seed Stockton Blackhawks enter with a perfect 9-0 record. They, too, are going to host a conference rival in the 16 seed Galena Pirates, who enter at 5-4. Last week, Galena beat Fulton 26-7 to punch that ticket to the playoffs. Stockton beat Forreston 44-6 to claim the outright conference championship. These two met up back in week 6, where Stockton won 30-12. The interesting part here, Logan, is that both of these teams are the two most winningest programs in NUIC history. Stockton is number 1 on the list. Galena is number 2 on the list. Likewise, they both have the most playoff appearances in NUIC history. Galena is making their 32nd trip to the playoffs, while Stockton is making their 35th trip to the playoffs. But Galena has more playoff wins in their history. Galena is 51-28 all-time in the playoffs. Stockton is 45-32. Both teams are making their second consecutive trip to these playoffs. Galena has won 3 state titles and 1 runner-up, their last state title coming in 2007. Stockton has won 2 state titles with 4 runner-up. Their last state championship appearance came in 2012 as the runner-up that year. What's your thoughts on this one?
Obviously, it's a big rivalry game, and anything can happen in those. You throw it into the playoffs, it gets amplified more. And I wonder if Galena has cleaned up enough or found something in that week 6 game film that allows them to exploit something. Well, I don't know what that would be. I don't know, but can they find a way to shorten the game? Is the big thing. That's how I think that's Galena's path, is shortening the game and keep the ball out of Stockton's hands. I mean, they held them to 30 points, which I think that's their second or third lowest? I think it's their second lowest. They've scored all year. Yeah, their second lowest all year. They scored 38 in week 2. It's their second lowest all year outside of the week 8 game at Dupec where they scored 18. So Galena's defense obviously did some things well. Can they continue to do those things well? For Stockton, it's cleaning up any mistakes you had in week 6, and also I'm sure they've added in some new wrinkles since then. And how will Galena adjust to those same wrinkles? The same can be said for Stockton going up against Galena again with that.
Yeah, I agree there. One of the things that Galena did do well in that game against Stockton is they were able to force Stockton into a bunch of turnovers. The downfall was that they couldn't convert those turnovers into points, where Stockton was still able to stay in control of the game. I think where Stockton has the advantage in this game is definitely on the offensive and defensive lines, and that's where Galena needs to put some additional focus at. I think Galena has to be able to get off the ball faster in order to withstand what Stockton is going to do, because if they don't, they're just going to get pushed back into their backers. I think that when you take a look at Galena's defense, their linebacking core and their defensive backs is where their strengths are at. But if you cannot make the gaps controlled to where those guys can shoot those gaps to make the plays, you turn yourself into some issues. What I also like about Stockton is not only can they establish the run game, but they can also establish the pass game. You take a look at rushing wise, Jack Mensendijk leads the way, 966 yards offensively. And then with that, you also add Carter Blair, who has 476 yards. Mark Detweiler is 372 yards. And last year, those 3 were all very close to being 1,000-yard rushers. This year, it hasn't been the case. But with that, Noah Larson is throwing 63 passes with a 65% completion rate, 15 touchdowns to just 2 interceptions. 835 yards through the air. So they've definitely been able to offset that rushing part and put it into the passing game where they're getting big contributions out of both Eli Larson and Morgan Hass at the tight end positions, which is why Stockton is one of the biggest teams that can create a lot of disruption because they're so multifaceted in what they can do. I mean, this team doesn't have the size of 2014 EPC, but what they have is the exact same coaching staff for the most part that the 2014 EPC team did. They also have the strength and tenacity and the ability to do both run and pass that team had, and that generates a lot of similarities. And let's be honest, that 2014 EPC team went on to dominate their way to state in Class 2A. When 2A was a lot tougher than what it is nowadays. I don't know. I think this is going to be a very interesting game. Like you like to say, this could be a trap game. Galena's got nothing to lose. Stockton has everything to lose. We've seen some weird things happen in these games in past times. We've seen Galena upset Stockton. We've seen Stockton upset Galena, which just leads more to what this rivalry game is. And Stockton's obviously one of the favorites to get to state, if not the favorite to get to state out of the North bracket. I've said it all along. It feels like it's Stockton's year. I'm sticking with what I said. I'm taking Stockton in this one.
I got Stockton. I think you'll see a similar score like last time.
So tell us what the projections are on this one and what the line is on it.
The projections: Stockton 35, Galena 6, and Stockton's favored by 31 points. It's pretty similar. Pretty similar to what the score was last time. Just Stockton has an extra 5 points and Galena has one less touchdown. I mean, that feels right. Because we've said it all year. This Galena defense is stingy. Like their defense is very good. It's just they got to be able to score.
I agree with you there. It's going to be tough, obviously, but again, another very intriguing matchup, I feel, because of what this rivalry is and what we've seen happen in past years. Either way, we'll be right back right after this. Life comes with a lot of big decisions, from protecting your home and family to planning for the future. That's where Tyler Hoffman with Country Financial comes in. As a local agent, Tyler knows our community and is committed to helping you build a plan that's right for you. Give Tyler Hoffman a call today at 815-248-2188 or stop by his office in Durand. Tyler Hoffman with Country Financial, protecting what matters most.
Need a logo, website, or standout graphic design? Check out Nick at Volkert Design, your go-to for high-impact branding and design solutions. With over 20 years of experience serving businesses across Northern Illinois and Chicagoland, Nick delivers best-in-class websites, logos, and graphics that get noticed. Whether you're a startup or an established name, Volkert Design brings your vision to life. Visit Volkert.design today to see the difference top-tier design makes.
Logan, let's move into Class 3A for this matchup. It's a very intriguing matchup as well. It's number 7 Johnsburg entering at 7-2, playing host to number 10, the Dupec Rivermen. Dupec lost last week to Lena-Winslow 40-20. So when you take a look at their 3 losses, they've lost to Lena-Winslow, they've lost to Stockton, and they've lost to Byron.
I think those are 3 okay losses.
They are. Their loss to Lena-Winslow was kind of similar to their loss to Byron, with the exception that Dupec didn't have the lead in this game. Johnsburg beat Harvard 45-14. Johnsburg's making their 4th trip to the playoffs under head coach Sam Lesniak, who is 2-3 in the playoffs. Last year, Johnsburg lost in the first round to Coal City 41-13. The Skyhawks are 15-17 all-time in the playoffs, and they're making their 18th trip to these playoffs. They're also making their 2nd consecutive trip to the playoffs as well. On the other side, Dupac lost in the quarterfinals last year to Wilmington 22-13. Dupac has made back-to-back quarterfinal trips in the 3A playoffs. As a co-op, the Rivermen are making their 5th consecutive trip to the playoffs, where their overall record is 7-5 in these playoffs. You have to go all the way back to 1985 before there was a co-op in place when Durand got to state, came home with a runner-up trophy. That is the only state appearance between both schools. And obviously, as a co-op, they've never made it there. But every year, they've at least won their first-round playoff game since they've been qualifying for the playoffs. Talking to Coach Lesniak, they have a passing offense. They like to run the ball, but they put the ball in the air more. Their leading rusher is Duke Mays. He has 530 yards with 4 touchdowns on the season. And then they also get contributions from C.J. Jones at 127 yards with the touchdown, and Carter Block, who has 121 yards rushing with 2 touchdowns. Block is also the quarterback. He's throwing 170 times with 110 completions at a 65% clip, 1,327 yards, 12 touchdowns to 9 interceptions. Not knocking him at all. Obviously, completion percentage very high, but the touchdown to interception ratio is where I have some concerns when it comes to how good Johnsburg really is. Obviously, we've given them a lot of respect. They've been in our state rankings on and off at different points in the year, and they ended up in the state rankings as well. They play in a very tough conference as well. The Kishwaukee River Conference has some great teams in it, Richmond Burton being one of them, who they lost to earlier this year. You take a look at their receptions. Ryan Franzi has 47 receptions for 728 yards and 7 touchdowns. He's their leading receiver. Their next 2 leading receivers are Jacob Vetter, who has 134 yards receiving with a touchdown, and Jack Thompson, who also has 134 yards receiving, no touchdowns. Gerald Albia has 13 receptions, 119 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And Duke Mays, the running back, also has 13 receptions for 113 yards. So clearly their quarterback is their 3rd leading rusher. So, throw first, run second type of offense here for Johnsburg. Probably 60 to 40% roughly. So a pretty well-balanced team. On the other side of the ball, the Rivermen are led by the one and only Dermot Dolan, 1,208 yards and a conference-leading 22 rushing touchdowns on the season. Lucas Rosso also is in that mix with 833 rushing yards and 8 touchdowns. When you take a look at the opportunities for Dupac, Rosso is throwing at almost a 60% completion clip. He has 5 touchdowns and just 1 interception, 358 yards through the air. His leading receiver is Caden Lender with 146 yards on 9 receptions. Brady Moore is also in that conversation as well. And then another kid starting to make noise and climbing up this list is Cooper Hamilton, who has put together some good games here towards the end of the season to become another target or a third target for the Rivermen. So they don't throw the ball a lot. They have the capabilities of throwing the ball. We see them do that a couple different times. Their biggest success against Byron and Lena-Winslow came through the air as well. So, I don't know. What's your thoughts on this game? I know you haven't seen Johnsburg play. And I don't know how much you've actually seen of Dupec either. But what's your thoughts looking at it from an outside point of view?
So I got to catch, because we played that Saturday, so I got to catch some of Stockton and Dupec as we were kind of switching channels. We were watching a lot of games that impacted 1A South, just kind of keep tabs on stuff. But so I saw that game, and then like the little YouTube highlights that they post, I've seen those. So I've seen the clips. Obviously I don't know enough about Johnsburg, but obviously they do come out of a good conference. Richmond Burton and Coal City are their 2 losses, both great teams.
Yeah.
Like,
No slouches,
there's no way to,
for sure.
No, those aren't any slouches. You look at it, and I think Dupec's physicality is going to be too much for Johnsburg. I think Dolan and Rosal are going to be able to. I'm not going to say run at will. I'm not going to say that. I think this is going to be a fairly close game, probably 2 touchdowns if I had to guess. Touchdown late to seal it. I think Dupec will be all right. But the thing that one of the other reasons that, like you point out, the touchdown to 10 reception ratio, Dupec's fairly athletic, and if he has just a little mistake on his throw or bad ball placement, anything, it's probably picked.
Yeah, I agree with you there. You take a look at the defensive backfield for Dupec; they're pretty solid in that part of the game. I don't keep defensive stats, so I can't remember what that turnover rate looks like, but I know that when you take a look at the defensive backs for Dupec, they're tough. They do a good job supporting run defense, which is a huge plus side to what they've been over the past few years. They play more downhill, so they're going to come up and knock you down. But these guys, they get after it. And like you said, the physicality of the Rivermen has definitely increased a lot. Now, it's not Johnsburg's in the same boat, man. Like we already talked about, the Kishwaukee River Conference, tough conference. Coach Lesniak has a very good team here. Obviously not a lot of playoff success, but you can't look at that and state that they're not good because, like you said, they're 2 losses, Richmond Burton and Coal City. Coal City is a team that is probably going to make a potential quarterfinal round in 4A, if not further. Richmond Burton is one of the teams we've talked about that has, one, they have an easy path to the quarterfinals this year, but they're also a team that we're looking at that potentially could be in that semifinal game even, going up against either a Byron or an IC Catholic potentially down the road, provided that they live up to expectations as well. So these guys have seen that type of team, just like Dupec has seen those types of teams, is basically what I'm getting at. I think that the familiarity level of playing top tier talent for both of these teams is at the same premium. This is one of those games where I think it's going to be a great game. Give us the projections on that.
Yeah, it is 27-20 in favor of Dupec, and Dupec's also favored by 7 points.
7 points. So the projection and the line, 27-20 Dupec, 7 points. 27-20 Dupec. 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 7 points are the same split. Yeah, this is going to be a fun game. I felt that way as soon as it came out. I still feel that way a couple days later. I was even talking about it, the potential opportunity on Saturday before we ever had the brackets released. I was talking to a friend, Bill Boujon, who was looking at potentially going to this game or the next game that we're going to talk about. Yeah, I like this game. I like the Rivermen in an upset here too. I think this is one of those upset opportunities, and I think Dupek can do that. And provided they do, they get a return home in round 2 most likely. Albeit it'll probably be against Byron because obviously they're projected to win that first round game as well by a landslide. But why not give yourself the best opportunity to get round 1, win, and come back home? I like it.
I like Dupek. I like Dupek too.
All right. We're going to talk about our Jess Schumacher game of the week when we return right after this. Are you looking to buy or sell a home in the NUIC area? Trust local expertise. Jess Schumacher with Remax Town, Lake, and Country knows the market and understands the community. Whether you're upgrading, downsizing, or buying your first home, Jess is here to make the process simple and stress-free. Put his experience to work for you today. Call Jess Schumacher with Remax Town, Lake, and Country at 608-347-3659. Your hometown realtor, helping you find home where your story begins. Our Jess Schumacher Remax Town, Lake, and Country game of the week takes us to Farmington, where the Farmers come in perfect at 9-0. They are going to host the number 14 seeded EPC Wildcats, who enter these playoffs at 5-4. EPC beat Dakota last week 53-22 to get into the playoffs. Farmington beat Bureau Valley 48-0. The Farmers are making their 10th consecutive playoff appearance. That's also their 10th consecutive under head coach Toby Vallis. The Farmers reached the semifinals a season ago before losing to eventual state champion Chicago Christian 34-20. Farmington is 16-23 in the playoffs all time. They're making their 24th trip to the playoffs. Last season's semifinal run was the furthest Farmington has ever gone in the playoffs. So they set school history last season. They did a lot of great things. And they return some key players from that team into this team as well. Now, one of the things that we talked about with Coach Vallis was that, this team is entering the playoffs at a much healthier level than what they entered the playoffs at last year. And he felt that if they can stay healthy, that they would be a team that can continue to do the things that they did a season ago. And you got to almost believe them. I mean, when you take a look at their body of work, they've blown every team away with the exception of Macomb, but they still beat Macomb by 2 touchdowns. And Macomb's entering the 4A playoffs. So, what's your thoughts on Farmington?
I think they're a pretty clearly explosive offense, and they really haven't been tested. Obviously, the Macomb game was close, but you look at it, they haven't been tested, and I do think some of that speaks to how good Farmington actually is. That I do believe that. I think that does speak to the strength that Farmington actually is. On the flip side, I also think it speaks to the level of competition in some of the games that they played. That's not a knock on who they play. You play who you have to play. Farmington did what they were supposed to do in every single one of those games. They won handily. So that's not a knock on them. You play who you have to play. And it's kind of, I was listening to the Views from West, and it's kind of like how do they match up in terms of, and like you brought up, the physicality that we presume EPC is going to bring. because I've said it a bunch. You don't really know till you know, and that's the tough part with these closed type conferences is once you get into playoffs and you start facing different teams, you finally get a little bit better of an idea. It's just tough to tell. I do think Farmington's a very good team. I will die on that hill. I think if they played anybody other than EPC in the first round, I think you're talking about them as a potential quarterfinal, semifinal team.
Yeah, I agree with you. You take a look at Carson Noy, their freshman quarterback. He's 58 of 98 on the season, which is pretty much 60%. 1,119 yards with 13 touchdowns. Jack Gronwald, who is the big receiver that they had a season ago, leads the team, 26 receptions, 637 yards, 8 touchdowns. Also has 165 rushing yards with another 5 touchdowns. Braden Brewer is a sophomore running back, 334 yards and 6 touchdowns. And then they have other wide receivers in Boston Smith, Landon Crawford, Trevor Fry, Noah Fleming, and Kyle Miller. And every one of them has scored at least one time this season. Has EPC played a team like this? They have. Galena runs a single back offense. And when you take a look at their stats, Roman Romer leads the NUIC in passing with 127 completions on 222 attempts, 57% clip, 1,463 yards, 11 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. They also played Morrison, and Carson White is the second leading thrower in conference with 122 completions on 211 attempts at 57% completion rate for 1,417 yards. Morrison obviously not in the playoffs. Galena is in the playoffs. Galena beat EPC. Where can EPC have the opportunity to do what they could not finish against Galena? That's going to be the biggest thing. They're going to have to get pressure on a freshman QB. They're going to have to win. And I know it's cliche because most time the team that wins the game is the team that wins the line of scrimmage. Not always is it the case because you can become over aggressive and lead yourself to vulnerable situations. So with that, they're going to have to play within themselves to get this. They're going to have to, offensively, they have to establish the run game. Obviously, EPC enters these playoffs. They lost in the first round to Rock Ridge last season, 22-8. Farmington beat Rock Ridge last year in that semifinal run. The Cats are 17-19 in the playoffs. They're making their 20th trip to the playoffs. This is Farmington's 20th trip as just Farmington before they used to be Farmington Central. EPC's making their second consecutive appearance in these playoffs. So prior to last year, their last time in the playoffs was in 2018, which was Coach McNutt's first season with EPC, and he took a team on a semifinal run that year before losing to also the eventual state champion in GCMS. Clearly, Draven Zier leads the conference in rushing. He's going to be the focal point for Farmington to shut down. I think that if EPC can get both Brecken Hayden and Brody Simons going, it might provide some additional options and opportunities for EPC to do things on offense that Farmington might not be prepared for. Likewise, EPC has to have better pass defense against a very accurate quarterback, but you also have to be able to get pressure on him. Like I said, he's a freshman. He was playing junior high football a season ago. So I don't want to take anything away from him because obviously he's led a team as a freshman to a 9-0 record in a conference championship and has gone up against other playoff caliber opponents already. So in his mind, he's just going up against another playoff team. I mean, it's to the point where he doesn't know any different. Outside of the fact that the lights are brighter on this game because you're actually in the playoffs now. That's where EPC has to be able to utilize that experience that they have. They have a junior-senior dominated team. And Farmington is relying on, they don't get me wrong, they have great senior leadership. Coach Vallis said he's got like 25 seniors out. That's huge. That's huge. And, you know, he's got experience back. They may not have the experience as far as the game is concerned, but they have the experience of being in the playoffs every year that they've been in high school. They've had to practice against playoff caliber teams every week. And like we were already talking about earlier on the show, you get to the quarterfinals, semifinals, things like that. You start to develop your team to be better as the weeks go on. Thoughts?
This game's so tough because I really do think Farmington's really good, but I also feel like EPC for a 5-4 team is really good themselves. It's by far the most. I think it's the most intriguing game in probably all the small classes 1A through 3A. I think it's the most intriguing game by far.
I agree. I mean, the problem I have, so go back to week 3 with that game against Galena. They lost that one 27-16. The score separation of that game is bigger than what the game really was.
Yeah, there was a touchdown late, right? Like no
EPC
time.
was driving for what would have been the game-winning touchdown, and they threw an interception that was returned for the touchdown separation to make it 27-16. They were trailing 20-16 at the time, got into the red zone, and then lost. Even to this day right now, because I was at that game back in week 3, and I said it then, and I said it now, I felt like EPC was the better team. They just lost on that day. And then you take a look at their other 3 losses, which are blowout losses to the top 3 teams in the conference. And those top 3 teams in the conference had been projected to beat EPC all season long. And I think those top 3 teams in the conference also, being Dupac, Stockton, Lena-Winslow, really set themselves apart from the rest of the NUIC. I don't know. There's a lot of talk about, well, these are the 2A playoffs and they play in a 1A conference and they're a 2A team. And my problem with that is when you take a look 1A to 3A, there's a lot of teams with the same situation, and there's not a lot of disparity between those classifications like there used to be in the old 6-class system. With the exception of like the powers of like a Richmond Burton, who is a 4A team now in the 3A playoffs, an IC Catholic, who's a Chicago Catholic League power now, a Byron team that has played at an above elite level enough to be able to compete with Chicago Catholic League teams and win those games against those teams and or lose those games relatively very close. Yeah, I would be interested to see, you know, like an Illini Prairie matchup, you know, just to get an idea of where Bloomington Central Catholic is. I mean, obviously I've seen film on them, but I have not seen them play in person. Between them, Tolono Unity, stuff like that. At the same time, I think that I've seen some of these teams play over the years at the championship level, and I've seen where I can take a Lena-Winslow or a Forreston, and I'd say, yeah, I'd take them against them. And that's being at state in the same time with a full view of what the kids look like, how they respond, react, get off the ball, stuff like that. Play, physicality-wise, all that stuff. I don't know. I agree. This is a tough one to pick. This is definitely... this, to me, is a bad draw for Farmington, like you said. Equally a bad draw for EPC, potentially, because they're playing a 3 seed, but regardless, they were going to play a top seed anyway with a 5-4 record. I think EPC can be dangerous. I think this game's going to be close. Give us the projections.
The projection itself is Farmington winning 31-30. However, EPC is favored by 1 point.
So basically, the projection favors Farmington on the opposite direction that EPC is favored by. So it's a toss-up game, which is exactly how I would see it play out anyway, which ironically is what the rating system has told us all season long that people have been complaining about. And now it's time to show up and show out for both teams. Who's going to do it is who's going to win. I did pick Farmington to win. I have the Farmers winning this game. I just think that their experience in this situation and being at home can outlast EPC. And I need to see something from EPC because playing Galena, they didn't put up a whole lot against Galena. And Farmington has a very similar base structure offensively to what Galena runs. Likewise, so does Morrison, and EPC only beat Morrison 22-0.
I've mulled this one over and I've gone back and forth in my head. I think I'm leaning with Farmington for similar reasons like you are. But the other thing that kind of we didn't mention was who besides Draven Zier can you trust for EPC to get going? Because someone's gonna have to help free up Zier because everyone's gonna be keyed in on him like it's their job, because that's what it will be. It's gonna be stopping Draven Zier and make Deacon Hoffmaster at quarterback beat you or one of their other backs. I don't know if, and that's not to say EPC can't do it or they don't have the firepower to. I think they do. We haven't seen that from them. Where likewise, all Farmington has done is just win and blow out teams like they were supposed to.
So if they can get the passing game going, I think that you can see Zy Haverland obviously is going to be a big physical target for EPC. Bryson Vaguely can also do some of the same things. Draven Zier can get the ball out of the backfield in the pass game. And Sawyer Williams can also be another target that can do big things for EPC as well. Out of the backfield, like I said, you gotta be able to get Brecken Hayden and Brody Simon somewhere in the place games to help, like you said, free up Zier. Because when they watch film, all eyes are on 22.
Stop him, we win. That's the message. I can almost guarantee it.
I want EPC to win. I do. I think this is a game that they can win. But I have Farmington picked to win.
I got Farmington.
All right, let's take a look across the rest of Class 1A through 3A. We're going to take a look at these playoff matchups and see who the projections are. And actually, while we do that, we'll start in 1A. I'll pull up the brackets so people can see what we're looking at. And Logan, let's start at that 9 seed, 8 seed game, Hayworth Princeville. What do you see there?
So I'm actually, it's a different offense, but it's a lot of the same kids. I'm actually, most of the kids when we played Hayworth in 23, are still there. They were all freshmen and sophomores at that time. Those kids are now all either graduated or juniors and seniors. They're the upperclassmen. Their quarterback was, if I recall, was a freshman at the time, and he's done nothing but improved. I watched the Tuscola game that they won, and he was making great throw after great throw. He was running the ball. I think they have a different back now. I'm not entirely sure, but I know a lot of those kids were young when we played them. I like Hayworth. I'm just a little more familiar with him, and I've watched him. And I think that win over Tuscola speaks to kind of the volume of a team that they can be and are when things are clicking.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you take a look at Hayworth. They have 2 losses on the year. They lost to Ridgeview Lexington 14-0. They lost to Leroy 14-12. And that's part of the problem I have. We saw Ridgeview Lexington climb into the 2A ranks when they were undefeated. And then they show that they probably should have never been in the 2A state rankings. Likewise, Leroy, I think, was very battle tested. I think they were a very tough 4-5 team, but they too lost to Ridgeview Lexington by a similar score differential. They lost to Tri-Valley. They lost to GCMS. They lost to Tuscola. And they lost to a team that was 3-4 at the time. No, I'm sorry, 4-3 at the time in Forreston, to basically get Forreston in the playoffs and keep Leroy out of the playoffs. So, Princeville, on the other hand, they played very tough with Anawan Wethersfield, losing that game 17-14. Their other loss was to Macomb. And outside of those 2 games, I'm trying to remember exactly. I remember looking at it, so I need to pull it up here real quick. But they had a 1-point win over A-Town, which to me was a win that they needed, but that was too close of a game, in my opinion, for what Princeville is. So I don't know if they had anything else happen, but everybody else they pretty much cleaned up. Right? I'm with you. I got Hayworth picked to win. But I think this is going to be a very close game, and I won't be surprised if Princeville wins. Princeville has proved me wrong in the past, and they've won games that I didn't feel that they would win. And Coach Carruthers does a great job there. And they're at home. I'm with you. I'm taking Hayworth. I think Princeville will be tough. And I'm not going to be surprised if Princeville wins.
It's a classic 8-9 matchup. It
is.
That's what it is. It's a classic 8-9 matchup. I think it'll be a good game. I know the projection is 27-17 Hayworth, and Hayworth's favored by 8 points. So it's right there in line with a toss-up game.
Yeah. I agree. Going to be tough. All right, let's take a look at the next seed, 13 Knoxville at 4 seed Clifton Central. What do you got on that one?
So this matchup is Clifton Central's favored to win 42-24, and they're favored by 14 points. That feels kind of like spot on. I think Clifton's going to score a bunch, and they might concede a couple points, a touchdown here or two, but I think Clifton Central's going to win.
Yeah, Knoxville had to sneak into the playoffs. Granted, I had them projected in the playoffs all the way back since week 5 when I first started projecting playoffs. So thank you to the Blue Bullets for showing the way and proving me right. But Clifton Central, my guy hitter, Matt Cerdick, and his comments get one at home to move on to the second round.
Yep, I agree.
Right. Hold on. I'll be right back. Hold on. Hold that thought. Sorry, had to go to the bathroom.
Oh, you're good.
All right. Let's take a look at the next one. We got 12 seed Dwight, 5 seed Rushville. What do you got here? This is another tight matchup, I think.
This game's making me pull my hair out. So Dwight's projected to win 34-31, and Rushville's favored by 4. I don't know. I'm gonna flip flop on this game. So no matter what, I can guarantee. Like right now, I have Rushville picked to win, but I can guarantee you by the time it comes Friday, I'll probably change my mind 5 times. I don't know. I've flipped back and forth on this game.
Yeah, this is another one where I think you can see an upset. I mean, Dwight, while they're not in a co-op anymore, they were a 2A quarterfinalist a season ago. Coach Luke Standiford returns quite a bit from last year's team. Rushville Industry, obviously, is a team that returned a lot of kids from their team last year as well. I remember getting some comments from people earlier in the year that we need to be watching out for Rushville Industry, but I really haven't seen a whole lot that I need to watch out for to this point. I am intrigued by this game. Obviously, Rushville is the favorite, and I think that they can win this game. They get the benefit of being at home, but Dwight's got the experience on their side. And, obviously, Rushville Industry lost week 1 to Macomb, a 4A school, to a 1A school. Macomb won that one by 2 scores. And then their other loss was a 3-score loss to Anawan Wethersfield. And if I remember correctly, that game was closer than what the final score was as well. And then you take a look at the rest of their games, especially over the last 4 weeks. I mean, they just blowing everybody away. And then go back to week 3, they had a close win over Princeville. I think this game here, too, provides a lot of intrigue. And I think that it could go either way. This is another toss-up game, a 12-5 seed. I'm picking Dwight. Won't be surprised if Rushville Industry wins, but I'm going with Dwight in this one.
I got Rushville.
Attaboy. All right, 15 seed Stark County, 2 seed Anawan Wethersfield. Obviously, this is a rivalry game here, much like we've talked about before. Conference powers meeting up in the first round. This game initially came at the start of Stark County's 4-game losing streak. They met in week 6, Anawan Wethersfield won 48-7. Give us the numbers.
Yeah, so Anawan Wethersfield is projected to win 44-6, and they're favored by 30 points. That feels exact. I mean, that was pretty much the score of the last game. The projection wise, that feels kind of right on. Again, it just Anawan Wethersfield has separated themselves in that conference, and it feels like they're. Obviously, I think they're second round, because I think they're going to go on the road in the second round. We'll talk about that in a second. I think that one could be tough, but if I had to guess, I think you'll see Anawan Wethersfield in the quarterfinals.
Yeah, that's where I initially had them projected to get to as well. Brought that up with Coach Grip on our playoff show too. Like I felt like he could have a quarterfinal matchup coming down the road here. Stark County, taking a look at what they've done over the past 4 weeks on this 4-game skid, and I don't know, I think they're battling some injuries as well, but they've allowed 48 points, 54 points, 48 points, 55 points over the last 4 weeks in their 4 losses. And if you take a look at their wins, their best win came over a 4-5 Havana team who was playing for their playoff life in week 9. And they won that one 42-36. So they have not competed with any playoff team. I think that trend continues here at Anawan Wethersfield big. All right. Number 10, DMAC at Chicago Crane. Give us the numbers. We're not even going to talk about this one much.
Yeah, DMAC's favored to win 42-17. They're projected to win, or they're favored by 26 points. CPL school in Chicago Crane, great season. Congrats on the playoffs. Deer Creek by whatever the score is.
Yep, I agree. Coach Myers goes on the road, gets a win, moves into the second round, and gets to host Anawan Wethersfield. All right, number 11, Marquette at number 6, GCMS. Whew.
This is a good game. Ottawa Marquette is favored to win 35-26, and they're favored by 4 points. I think this is a really good game. I got Ottawa Marquette, but I don't kind of like the classic 8-9, 7-10. This feels like classic 6-11 where it's a coin flip. I wouldn't be shocked if Gibson City won. We've seen them look better in recent weeks, but I like Ottawa Marquette.
Yep, I'm the same with you. I think that this game is going to go by way of the Crusaders. I think, again, this game can be a game. GCMS obviously is going to be at home. I think Marquette, when you take a look at who they've lost to an Aurora Christian team who's in the 2A playoffs. They lost to Edgar out of Wisconsin, who is undefeated and a typical state power in Division 7 in Wisconsin. They lost to them by 3. And then they lost to Seneca, who's also undefeated in the 2A playoffs by a very similar score that they lost to Aurora Christian by. And I think both those teams can make some noise in the 2A playoffs. So, yeah, I like the Crew. All right, let's move to 1A South here. Villa Grove at Calhoun. Yeah, we're just give us the numbers.
Calhoun is projected to win by 58-0. The line is Calhoun favored by 46 points.
All right, they move on. All right, congratulations, Logan. You get some sleep this week.
Gotta play the games.
I know.
Gotta play the games.
Cesar-Valier, 9 seed at Greenfield Northwestern.
Greenfield's projected to win 24-17. They're favored by 9 points. I was just looking over because we played Cesar in the second round last year. I know what Greenfield had. I didn't remember what Cesar had back, and their quarterback, I think all their top running backs. That team seemed mostly junior loaded, so all those kids are now seniors this year. I still think Greenfield wins. You look at what they've done in obviously, you look at what they've done against Camp Point and us. They held us to 14, held Camp Point to 24. That's 38 points. Not many teams can say they've done that this year. I think the Greenfield defense is just going to be too much.
Cesar Valliere is one of those teams that we've seen do some things here in recent years. I mean, I pissed off TP Talk a year or two ago when I picked Cesar Valliere to beat Johnson City, and they said, no way. And it probably wasn't actually TP Talk. It was probably somebody on TP Talk, but regardless, I pissed off the Tribe Nation down there. And I won that battle, by the way. But when you take a look at Cesar Valliere's losses, they lost to Flora by 2 touchdowns. They lost to Red Hill by a score. And then they lost to Johnson City by three touchdowns. And obviously Johnson City and Flora finished 1-2 in the conference.
That Red Hill loss just sticks out though.
Yes, it does. It does.
It doesn't. I don't know what happened. I saw it. I remember I saw it score in week 3, and I was like, it didn't make sense to me. It just, I don't know. Maybe they could have had people hurt. Who knows? We don't. But it just.
Yeah, I like UNW. All right.
I like Greenfield.
Number 13, Red Hill at KZ Westfield.
Red Hill is projected to lose 31-6, so KC's projected winner. KC's also favored by 24 points.
Congratulations, Warriors. You move on to the second round. Number 12, Nokomis. Number 5, Tuscola. Woo, baby.
Tuscola is projected to win 40-14, favored by 23 points.
I saw somebody put out a projection on X that had Nokomis beating Tuscola. I just don't see that one happening.
I don't got it either. I think Tuscola is going to be too much, and I think you get a week 2 rematch.
I think Dylan Graves is going to be too much. Just my thought.
Yeah, he's really good.
Number 15, West Central at number 2, Camp Point Central.
Camp Point's projected to win 48-10, favored by 29 points.
Coach Dixon, the Panthers move on. Number 10, Athens at number 7, Brown County.
So BC is projected to win this one 31-19, and they're favored by 17 points. I like Brown County in this game. Athens does have a really good feature back, and I don't want to mispronounce his last name, but I'm probably going to. It's Gage Hahn. It's Honn. I don't know how you pronounce it, but he's averaging 76 yards per game. I think he's responsible for like 24 of their 39 touchdowns. I was looking into it. He's a really good football player. I think Brown County is going to bounce back here, and I think the Hornets defense will just be too much for Athens. I do think this will be a good game. I just think Brown County's defense will be too much.
Yeah, when I was talking to Coach Knox, obviously Gage Hahn and Lincoln Kirk were his 2 biggest players to watch. They're making their 15th trip to the playoffs in his 17 years at the helm. It's the first time back in the 1A playoffs since 2021. And he was excited to hear from me once again because that meant he was back in the playoffs. But, Gage Hahn, 1,382 yards, 20 touchdowns, 217 attempts. He's also the kicker. 16 of 19 in his PATs as well. Lincoln Kirk defensively has 102 tackles to lead the team. Some other players to watch out for: Isaac Brown and Ethan Smith. I think this one's going to be a fun matchup. Brown County had a hard time with Camp Point Central. I can see him having similar issues with Athens. Oh,
I think it'll be a good game.
I'm going to pick BC. That's my pick. But I think I wouldn't be surprised if Athens wins this game. That's my thoughts.
I like it. I'm kind of there with you. If Athens slows the game down and has ball control, I think that becomes advantage Athens. I'm really high on this Brown County defense. I think their physicality is a lot.
All right, let's take a look at Salt Fork at Dupo.
Dupo is projected to win 35-22. Dupo favored by 8 points.
Wow, I'm kind of surprised by that. But I have Dupo moving on too, so.
Surprised that's not more? Or less?
No, I'm surprised it's that much. I figured Salt Fork would be better.
I don't know.
Dupo's obviously doing some things right. Let's put it that way.
I think they're very well coached. You gotta be well coached to go 8-1. So I like Dupo. I think this will be a close game.
All right, last one in 1A, Carrollton at Oakwood.
The Carrollton Hawks are projected to win 24-22 and are favored by 4 points. This was I like Carrollton in this one. I went back and forth on this because this is a true coin flip game. They've obviously got a long bus ride, but that's the fun of the playoffs. I think Coach Flowers is going to have a good job dialed up on their defense. They always seem to do a pretty good job defensively. He's a great defensive coordinator, and I think they're going to do enough to win, enough on offense to win this game.
I agree. I think Carrollton is the better team. So this will go down as an upset. But when you take a look, really, Carrollton has one bad loss on the season. That was to Mendon Unity back when they were healthy, though. But looking back on the body of work that they have, that was a bad loss. And of course, they got rocked by your team in week 7. After you guys had come out of stumbling a victory over GNW, a team that Carrollton beat earlier this year. So I think if the right Carrollton team shows up, they can win this game. I like Carrollton as well.
That's where my head's at.
All right, let's take a look at the Class 2A bracket. We're going to speed some things up here as well. We're just going to go through, take a look at who the teams are, the matchups that they have, and pick our winners. So we'll start in 2A North. 16 seed Illini West at Rockridge. Rockridge is a huge favorite there. They're my pick to win that one. What's yours?
Kohlenschweigen's a dude.
All right, 9 seed Tri-Valley at 8 seed Chicago Richards out of the CPL. Yeah, Tri-Valley, okay.
Congrats, Tri-Valley.
13 seed Riverdale at 4 seed Seneca. Riverdale getting back into the playoffs. Coach Derricks was supposed to be on our playoff show. He tried to call in twice. I unfortunately was unable to get to him in a timely fashion, and he had to put the kids to bed. So I totally understand where he was coming from with that as it was getting late in the night, but I appreciate him reaching out. Seneca's going to be tough. We also had Coach Maxwell on the show. I got Seneca in this one.
I got Seneca too.
Number 12, West Hancock. Number 5, Wilmington. Yeah, Wilmington. Okay. I like Coy Dorothy. I really do. But, man, he got a tough draw here.
It's a brutal draw.
You're going to arguably the favorite in Class 2A.
Yeah.
Hey, enjoy the experience, Coy. I have not been to Wilmington for a game. I need to go. It's on my bucket list places of games to go. Soak it all in. Enjoy the drive up. Soak it all in. And enjoy that experience that Wilmington puts on. All right, 15C, Chicago Marshall at El Paso Gridley. Coach Benedict moves on.
Yep.
Ridgeview, Lexington at Newman Central Catholic, 10 seed at 7 seed. I like Newman. Projections say Newman by 9, 27-20 final score. I think Newman wins by more than that.
I like Newman too.
I just think Newman's a much better team than Ridgeview, Lexington. I've seen Ridgeview on tape. I got to see Newman in person. EPC at Farmington. We already talked about that one. Erie Prophetstown at Aurora Christian. This is going to be a tough one for Erie Prophetstown. Aurora Christian, their 2 losses are to Bishop McNamara and Chicago Hope. Both teams are in the 3A playoffs. Both are in the same quad as IC Catholic. So we're not really going to get a great opportunity to see how far either of them can go. Wow, this ain't the same Bishop McNamara team as years past. Bishop McNamara and IC Catholic used to be conference rivals. And then IC Catholic left and went into the Chicago Catholic League, and Bishop Mac was left high and dry. So they fell into the Chicagoland Christian Conference, which is starting to get stronger. Obviously, we saw a state champion out of it last year in Chicago Christian. We saw a great Chicago Hope team come up short against Lena-Winslow the year before that in the semifinals. This Aurora Christian team, coached by Dave Beebe, formerly Don Beebe, before he went to Aurora University. Dave's been there for quite some time now. Been able to talk to him over the years. Been a lot of fun having conversations with him. Aurora Christian's going to win this one big, I think.
Yeah, I like Aurora Christian.
All right, let's move to 2A South. 16 seed Westland at 1 seed Johnston City. Go Tribe.
Yeah, Johnston City.
9 seed Merle Forsyth at Chester. Whew. I've already talked to some people from Chester, man. They want this game.
Moreau is favored 31-28, favored by 5 points. I don't. If the Moreau team that plays up to their ability comes out, I think Moreau is going to win.
Did Chester give them some troubles last year? Or did Moreau just beat the piss out of them? Moreau beat them by 3 touchdowns last year in the second round.
Yeah. I think you're going to see a similar game.
And Chester struggled to get out of the first round against Westville.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's going to be a great game. I do. I think Chester can rebound. They want this game. They're going to get it.
Revenge,
and they got it at home, too.
Revenge can do a lot. Chicago Christian against Monroe last year is a great example.
Exactly. I'm picking Monroe, but I won't be surprised if the Yellow Jackets come out with it. Number 13 or 13 seed Nashville at 4 seed Flora.
Nashville.
Yeah. Same. 13 seed gets the best of the 4 seed here. 12 seed Bismarck Henning at 5 seed Pana. I know my good pal Coach Robo is going to be upset because I'm going against his Devils. I'm taking the Hall of Famer Mark Ramsey and Pana. If the Devils come out on top, I know I'm going to hear about it. 15 seed Shelbyville at 2 seed Westville. Westville. Coach Goodlove keeps moving on. 10 seed Carlinville at DuQuoin, the 7th seed.
DuQuoin.
I like that one too. There's a lot of people down in DuQuoin that are looking at that potential opportunity of a DuQuoin Johnston City semifinal game.
It's there.
It's possible. It could happen.
It's very possible. It's very possible this year.
I think that second round game between Westville and DuQuoin is going to be who represents the South Division. My thoughts.
I like Westville.
Marshall at Arthur Lovington.
Flip a coin. I don't know. All is only projected 1 by 1 point. I think they're favored by like 6.
This is another 14-3 seed like we saw in 2A.
Yeah.
Marshall's going to be tough. I think Marshall's going to be tough for Arthur.
I do too.
I'm taking Ottawa. They got upset in the first round last year or 2 years ago.
2 years ago against QND.
Yeah. And QND was a 4-5 team.
Yeah. I got all.
I got Ottawa too. Won't be surprised if Marshall puts up a fight. 11 seed Sullivan at 6 seed Cumberland.
Cumberland wins again. I think they get him again.
All that hype around Sullivan this year. At least that's what people said when I put out the initial teams to watch. Sullivan was one of those teams. Well, you better keep your eyes on Sullivan. It is hard to beat a team twice, and of course their 2 losses are to Arthur Lovington and Cumberland, but let's be honest, neither of these teams are state caliber teams, which means Sullivan ain't either. So I don't know why I had to waste my time putting my eyes on them, but I got Cumberland.
I got Cumberland.
All right, let's go to 3A North. Let's flip screens here. And we'll pull that one out. We're going to pull that one up. 3A North. North Boone at Richmond Burton Big.
Yep.
Number 9 seed Aurora Central Catholic at Noble Rauner. I got Aurora Central Catholic, surprisingly. I can't even believe I'm saying that, but
I got Aurora Central Catholic.
it doesn't matter. Whoever wins is going to get slaughtered in round 2 anyway, 70-0. 13 seed Princeton at 4 seed Bloomington Central Catholic. I think this is one of the more intriguing matchups in round 1, but I think BCC just has too much firepower for Princeton this time.
I think BCC in a competitive game.
12 seed Mantino at 5 seed Monmouth Roseville. Another one that could be pretty tight here. What's your thoughts?
I got Monmouth Roseville. I've been really impressed with them. Obviously, they had the one hiccup in the Rockridge game, but everyone seems to think pretty high of Rockridge. So I think Coach Adolphson?
Yep.
I think Coach Adolphson and co get it done.
Mantino's got a big line. I don't know about the physicality. They did lose to a Herscher team that I was not very impressed by. And I mean, Herscher lost to BMAC. I don't know.
I got Monmouth Roseville.
Yeah, they got rocked by Wilmington and Coal City, too. Not saying that they shouldn't have, because, like we said, those 2 teams are tough, but
pretty good.
Yeah, Monmouth Roseville is my pick to win. 15 seed Oregon at 2 seed Byron.
Go Tigers.
Byron wins big. My buddy Brock Kundert gets back to the playoffs. Unfortunately, conference rivalry in the first round. Goes by way of the champs. 10 seed Dupac at Johnsburg. We already talked about Herscher at BMAC. I got BMAC.
I got BMAC.
Those 2 played earlier this year. BMAC won that one. Big. What was that score, by the way? 45-28. So this is almost similar as far as projections. 16-point projection for BMAC with a 21-point projected win. IC Catholic at Chicago Hope. ICCP.
Go Knights.
It's not even a question. All right, 3A South. Hillsborough at Williamsville. Williamsville big for me.
Yep, I got Williamsville.
9 seed Fairfield at 8 seed Porta. That's going to be a tough one.
I got Porta.
I have Porta too. Will not be surprised if Fairfield comes out on top. The winner gets Williamsville. Whew. 13 seed Mount Carmel at 4 seed Tolona Unity. I'm taking the Rockets. I'm taking the Rockets to the championship game. So why would
Give Tolono.
why would I stop in the first round?
Tolono.
12 seed Paris and 5 seed Monticello. I like Monticello.
I like Monticello too. That projected score is so close, though. I don't that.
Paris has a dude at halfback, from what I hear. I have not seen him play. I would not be surprised if they give Monticello fits. I just think that it's going to come down to coaching, and Cullen Walter's a dude. One of the best in the state, period.
Yep.
15 seed CZR at 2 seed Vandalia. Vandalia big for me.
Vandals.
Number 10 seed Greenville at Olympia, the 7 seed.
Olympia.
Yeah, this one's got a close projection, but I just like Olympia's run game. And you know what happens in November.
Yep.
14 seed St. Joe Ogden at 3 seed Benton.
Benton in a competitive game.
That's going to be a good game. Another 14 3 seed. Jeez. It's something in the water with this 14 3 seed.
Benton in a competitive game. That's kind of where I'm at.
I like the Rangers too. All right. 11 seed Roxana at 6 seed West Frankfort.
I got the Shells.
Same. Roxana's going to be too much, I think. All right. Well, that takes a look at Class 1A through 3A. We went through the entire bracket. All 96 teams. Holy cow. That was long. We might have to make this its own show tonight. We're already an hour and 40 minutes in. Or something.
Yeah.
Well, either way, it was fun. We got to take a look at everything, 1A to 3A. And what do you think?
I think it's going to be a fun 5 weeks.
Always is. Always is. Obviously, we got some great games here in the first round. Unfortunately, we got some other games here that are going to be dog walks in the park. But with that, I think that the second round is definitely going to start seeing some great impactful games like it usually does once we get through the first round. But there's definitely some good first round matchups here that are going to be a lot of fun to keep your eyes on across all 3 of these classes.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think you'll see us tick up in the second round like you normally do. Like I said, it'll be fun. It all starts this Friday. I'm excited for it. Always am.
I agree. Well, Logan, we're going to catch you next week when we come back and talk about what happened in round 1 and start looking ahead to round 2. In the meantime, we got Joe Murdian hanging out, ready to come on next to talk about 8-man football as we get ready to go on the road to Monmouth. So we'll see y'all next week.